History's greatest war didn't begin on a battlefield. It started in a silent throne room, where a prince reached out for a crown he was legally forbidden to wear. Hastinapur was the dominant power of the age, yet its future was stalled. A series of early deaths had left the royal line thin, and the empire found itself without a clear heir to the Golden Throne. This wasn't a simple matter of who was oldest. According to the Vedic law of kingship, a ruler had to be physically whole to serve as the protector of the realm. As this lineage shows, the previous heirs were gone, and the law now scrutinized the remaining sons against a strict physical standard. This law directly targeted the eldest prince, Dhritarashtra. Though he was the firstborn and possessed immense physical strength, he had been born without sight. Because of his blindness, the law bypassed him entirely. The crown moved laterally. It was placed on the head of his younger brother, Pandu, who became the reigning emperor of Hastinapur. Dhritarashtra stood by during the coronation, offering his public support. But behind the scenes, he viewed the law as a personal theft, harboring a belief that the throne was his by right of birth, regardless of his disability. Pandu held the scepter, but the palace now contained two centers of gravity. By seating the younger brother while the elder brother watched from the shadows, the court created a divide that the empire's laws were never designed to bridge. Pandu proved to be a vigorous ruler. This map of the subcontinent shows the results of his early campaigns, as he led the Kuru armies to expand the empire's borders further than they had been in generations. But during a routine hunt in a remote forest, Pandu made a fateful mistake. He struck a deer that turned out to be a sage in meditation. As the man lay dying, he placed a curse on the king that effectively ended his ability to live a normal royal life. Paralyzed by the spiritual weight of the act, Pandu gave up his crown. He left the capital behind, choosing a life of exile in the wilderness with his two wives, Kunti and Madri. This sudden vacancy forced Dhritarashtra onto the throne. However, because Pandu was still technically alive and had heirs of his own, the council granted Dhritarashtra the title of regent, a caretaker meant to hold the power but not own it. Ruling through a legal technicality meant Dhritarashtra's authority was always temporary. He presided over the world's most powerful empire, knowing that at any moment, the rightful branch of the family could return to reclaim the seat he finally occupied. As the years passed, the physical distance between the two brothers created two vastly different worlds for the next generation of princes. In the mountains, Pandu's 5 sons, the Pandavas, were raised in a world of stone and sky. They grew up far from servants and silk, educated by forest sages and hardened by the physical demands of the Himalayan wilderness. Hundreds of miles away, Dhritarashtra's 100 sons, the Kauravas, were raised in the epicenter of the Hastinapur palace. These princes grew up within the walls their father had spent a lifetime trying to secure. They were surrounded by the architecture of power and the constant reminder that their father's hold on that power was under threat from their distant cousins. By the time these two groups reached adulthood, they were strangers. One side was forged by the isolation of the forest, the other by the politics of the court. The physical split had ensured that neither side could understand the life the other had led. The separation ended abruptly when Pandu died in exile. Kunti made the only choice she could. She gathered her 5 fatherless sons and walked them out of the forest, back to the massive gates of Hastinapur, to present them to the royal court as the rightful heirs of the late emperor. They arrived to find a city that had spent years adapting to a different ruler. Dhritarashtra was no longer just a caretaker. He was the establishment, and his own sons were now grown men. The political math had become impossible. You have 5 princes from the forest on one side, and 100 princes from the palace on the other. All of them were living in the same corridors, all of them claiming the same singular birthright. The Kauravas did not see brothers or cousins. They saw 5 rivals who had appeared from the woods to disrupt the only life they had ever known. The tension inside the palace walls reached a point where the slightest friction could trigger a collapse. Hastinapur was no longer a home. It was a cage filled with heavily armed young men who viewed each other as existential threats. The only thing holding the empire together was the influence of a single man who had outlived his entire generation. Join us tomorrow to see the impossible choice faced by the patriarch, Bhisma Pitama.